So this is the plate. This is 2 foot by 2 foot. So we have 3/4 here, 3/8 for the material, and then another brick. So the brick just hangs over a little bit. So the brick hangs over just a smidgen. So when it drip edge, it'll come down and not where this overhangs the brick and then goes back and rots all this. So, but I'm going to tape this around this perimeter and then lag this on there so it's nice and secure. But that's what it looks like. Those 4 holes, I just kind of put one in temporary, but these are some 10-inch lags, 3/8 by 10. I'm going to put those in the 4 corners, and then I'm going to come back with these other ones that I had. I don't need 10-inch on all of them, but these are 6 inches. So, and these will work good for the rest of the holes. So sometimes you got to use up what you got, and you'll never see this because this is going to be close to the ground. This will be maybe 1 inch off the ground by the time it's said and done. So you'll never see the different colors and everything. So that will be it. So nice heavy duty plate. This thing's going to weigh a ton. I want to put the grid system on, the Speedy Mason system on, and then we'll have to go and put them in, because by the time if I put the brick on like I originally planned, it's going to probably weigh 600, 700 pounds. So that is not going to be feasible to carry around easy and to transport. So just going to put the grid on because that's pretty lightweight, maybe adds 20 pounds. And then we'll be able to just take this and tip it up onto the pier. And then we'll have to outside, I got a tent, we'll just set up a tent so the sun's not always on us. And then we'll have to just brick it up on there and kind of go from there. But that's kind of the lowdown of it. So I have this G-taped. You can see I pre-drilled the holes, so G-taped it. This is the stretch tape. As you can tell, it just stretches around the corners nice and well. And then all regular G-tape the rest of this stuff. But I used the stretch tape here. It's a lot more expensive, but I did that so I could wrap up and under here just to make sure no moisture wicks underneath there ever and gets underneath there. So that's why I did that tape. And then I'm gonna just throw some regular G-tape on this just to protect the bottom. Unnecessary, but I'm gonna do it anyways. And then obviously that's the top, so a piece of foam will go there, and then the 2.5 inch solid cap will go there too. So, but that's how that looks. So it's looking good so far. And then I'll put the metal plate on and get it lifted into place where I'll put the Speedy Mason system on. I have a little stand set up there. I'm going to drop it in there, and then I'll be able to put the Speedy Mason system on, the foam on the top, and get all that figured out. So looking good. So that's the base plate after we screwed it on to the column. So there is the column laying down flat. 8-inch stem here. This is, I think, 1 7/8 pipe, or maybe 2-inch pipe. But it's all lagged in, all taped. So I'll zip wall tape the corners and the seam here and there. And I'm gonna run one more band around the bottom. But that's what it looks like. I got that one temporary set up on some blocks in a system. Then I kind of rigged up so that stem drops in the middle of there. It drops into a 6x6 post, and I shimmed these up to make this plumb and level best I can, just to have it there. Now I'll put the zip wall or the Speedy Mason system on here around all the way to the top, and then I'll be ready to transport on site. And I'll put the foam top on eventually. I'll just cut it to fit for now, and then that will get the block on top, the cap on top. But that's what it is. So kind of all got it prefabbed and ready to go. So the little dimples here push it away from the zip system. So that creates, if there's any water that would ever get back behind it, it will just flow out. And obviously you can tell this column here, have it all zip taped and rolled the tape. So there's a seam there, so I covered that, and then I did another band around the bottom. If any water would ever get in, it would hit here and then go out, because I taped the top as well with some Siga, and the bottom. So all of it's taped. This is where the cap's gonna go. So I'm gonna use foam product on top and then shim that up so that the foam product nice and level, and then set the big old piece of the top cap on that's 2.5 inches, and that'll give us our 60 inches. But that's how that looks, and looking good. So I'm gonna put the Speedy Mason panel on now. So just all the same cuts all the way up, and it's all self-spacing and everything, which is nice. So it goes in pretty quick. So we are putting on the Speedy Mason. This is peel and stick panels. Bought a whole bunch of them, so I have a whole bunch to use, and that's what we used on the last project. But basically, you're supposed to be able to just peel back that film there. Show you, which is basically this film here. You're supposed to be able to peel that back and then just stick on the brick. But we always put mortar behind it, and that's the best way. So we mortar all the brick in, especially on the exterior. You want to make sure that bond's good, and then you put your screws right through this track here. There's spots here and here that you put your screws in, so you make sure we do that. And also too, everybody's wondering about the airflow. So you can see these little dimples here. Push it away from. This is why it's a no-brainer to use this. My metal plate obviously is level and heavy duty, so I rest the channel on here. So this is a 3/8 gap here that I'll, caulk that in once we set it once we set it on top of the helical pile. This will get caulked in, and then here it's all spaced. So the brick just sits right on this ledge, sits on this ledge, sits on this ledge, this ledge, this ledge, this ledge. These panels are 16 inches, so it just sits right on the ledge, and then it has the gap here that you will grout in. So it's all preset. So instead of going out in the field and, getting your first row all level, and then, putting spacers in between or trying to do it all, this is just a no-brainer. And then the next panel will slip right into here. So the next panel slips right into here. You'll see that little groove. It just drops right in, and it's all preset. This is where you put the screws at, is right here. So we'll obviously fill this with mortar and squeeze the brick into it. So screwed off, and I'm gonna run some screws into here as well, all the way up. This is the center point of pretty much the center point of the plywood. So I'll use that for my gauge, but that's how it is. And these dimples obviously create a little gap behind. So you got the zip system, which is good. But then if anything else, it gets behind, and then we'll flow out of the bottom. So I'm debating on putting anything here, or maybe I'll put I'll just leave a couple weep holes here and not caulk it in, just leave the caulk out, and then if any water ever gets behind it, it'll come out. So, but that's how that system works. You can use it on exterior, and you've seen us use it on interior a lot. So just keep wrapping it around. So this is one column all wrapped in the Speedy Mason system. We'll do another one, but that's how easy it just goes on. Screw it right on, and then it's ready for brick. Obviously, I'm gonna have brick corners here, and I'll use those. You opposite those, and then everything else is the standard brick lay. So I'll do all the corners first, and then whatever I got for filling. Definitely probably will have some cuts throughout here, but that's what that looks like. So one column, and then I got a piece of foam on top, exterior grade foam product to cover it up. And then this is where you have a 2-inch cap sit on top. So I'll definitely put some mortar here and get that nice and level. But that's kind of what that looks like. Foam is removable. I haven't screwed that down. Just take that with the job site and then put that down eventually. But that is kind of the look of it, all 4 sides wrapped in Speedy Mason. Also, these are the plates like I mentioned yesterday that we're using, heavy duty. And then once we go, this 8-inch stem goes into the helical pile. We'll screw that all in, and then that will be what holds everything up. So all the weight and everything will be on that helical. We'll screw it in. I did the math. I asked Chat GPT, 1/2 inch steel, 2 foot by 2 foot, what that weighs, and it's like 71.98 pounds. So almost 72, probably 72 pounds with that stem. So each plate is 72 pounds. So definitely pretty heavy, and going to be able to support this no problem. Working on the last column, and I got it all zip taped and waterproofed and all that good stuff. This is the Speedy Mason panel. So I have this one side done. Obviously this is the mailbox. This showed up finally. And those are super expensive mailboxes, heavy duty, and so all solid steel, plenty of room, but you never knew how much mailboxes were until I ordered one. So not the cheap ones that you get at a box store, Lowe's and Menards and what have you, but heavy duty. It's got the flag that can be pulled out. It's got magnets on it, but cut that open and fit right in there, and it fit right there against that, which is good. I was gonna put some backing in there, but don't need to. And then you gotta have a little bit of a gap here for the door to swing. So that's for the door to swing. That works perfect. The brick, I'll probably just have to notch a little bit of the brick, but I want to make sure that clears first. And then that will sit against the brick and get all mortared in. But that's what one side looks like. So I'm going to pop this mailbox out, get these other sides wrapped. We're going to set these hopefully tomorrow. If the weather's working good, we'll set the helicals and drop the big old plate in there, and then run the wire up for the light. So we got some low voltage lights we got to do too, but that's it. But this is how this looks. 6x6 Eastern red cedar, so very hard, dense stuff. I plunge cut in there with a circular saw, and then I had to use a couple Sawzall blades to cut that open, and then drop that in there. So if it's made it just a smidgen bigger, because I knew there would be some issues, but nothing to worry about there. Doesn't have to be the cleanest cut, but that fits right in and gets supported off of those 6x6, and I might put a back support in there just in case once we get it set up and get it all leveled up. That's the opening for the mailbox. So we got the helical piles in. These are 7 foot long, so we go down 7 feet. Got the one over there. Did not hit the main power line. Always call the diggers hotline for that. See, it's right there. Obviously we're off a good 2 feet from the power. This one went down 7 feet as well. So this will be just the brick column to match the house column. And then this is the new mailbox. And then you have one more across here, 7 feet down. And that has a steel plate on it. I'm gonna get that steel plate pretty flush to the ground, so I'm gonna have to dig out a little bit of this area, cut that post down a little bit farther so that sits nice and flush, and should be good. So, and then we'll put screws through this metal post. That's why I have to dig down a little bit so I can get a drill in there to put some screws in there. But that's how that looks, and it'll look good. So quick and easy for those 3 footings. Took maybe 35 minutes. Got 3 columns loaded up, and you can see I had these pre-drilled by the shop guys, the welding guys. This is where we're gonna run the wire for the low voltage lights. We have a rope lighting that's going to go underneath the cap all the way around, and then the connection will be inside this post since it's hollow. This is the 8-inch stem that will go on the helical pile, and then I decided on these 4 corners approximately. I'm going to drive these in, and here they're 30 inches long. The helical pile is 7 feet long, but I'm gonna drive these in real close to here just to have extra support on all 4 corners. Is basically the helical pile is gonna pick up all the load. So that's pretty much done there. So the helical pile that I put in will pick up this load easy. I think it it hit good pressure and everything. So I think the helical pile will hold at least 7,000 pounds for this center point. So it'll support these easy. These probably gonna weigh maybe 1,000 by the time it's all said and done with the brick and everything at the most. But I'm gonna put these in the four corners. I'm gonna use a jackhammer these down. I'll put a block in there and then you'll see how that goes. But jackhammer these down in the four corners just to help stabilize it is all it's really doing. But just better safe than sorry. And just extra thing, kind of above and beyond what we do. I mean, yeah, I definitely could just leave the helical pile and support it, but I'm gonna add extra and call it good. But these are all in here, and that's the super heavy one. That's got the Eastern Red Cedar. That's what the mailbox is. People are gonna be driving by, so I want that to be more stout. And this is just 6x6, still heavy duty, 6x6 Western Red Cedar. So still stout and good, but these are farther away from the street and they'll still be supported the same, but that one's just gonna be a lot beefier weight-wise. It's about twice the weight as these other ones. So once we drop this in, I'll cut the helical pile real close to the ground. So then this is maybe an inch off the ground. And then I'll cut the helical pile to that level. And then from there, I'll have these 4 spikes at the same height and then drop it in. And then those will all just sit on there nice and even. And then screw it all in through the helical pile, 4 screws, and that will be nice and sturdy. Once we screw those in and get it all plumb and level, and then I will eventually get the brick, hopefully next week. Hopefully it comes in tomorrow, get the brick, and then start putting all the brick on here. The cap is here too. I gotta get the lights, the wire ran for the lights, and that hooked up. So that'll all kind of get accomplished and done. But that will look really good once this is all stoned and grouted in and everything. We are getting the post anchors put in, so this is really, and they backfilled all of it. This area was gravel. That's what that looks like, just to get the corners a little bit of stability. Helical piles in the middle, but that's what that looks like. That one's all ready to go, leveled up. That one's all good to go. Leveled up as well. The base will be flush with the grass there, so you'll definitely see some of that. Probably gonna put some gravel underneath there to kind of hide it. But I'm gonna drive these down, hopefully go decent. Had to cut some of this off because of how rocky this is. They're not gonna go down to 30 inches, but this will be plenty just for stability. But that's what that looks like.
I had the Makita one.
Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. This is just the start of the columns on the Skyline house. So stay tuned for more, and we will start the brick process and get these all wrapped up.